Okay, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to focus our attention to creating a Linux hardened repository for our Veeam server. A Linux hardened repository is a requirement if you want to perform immutable backups and you want to perform those immutable backups on-premise. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to install a a server with the operating system of Ubuntu 20.04. You can use different flavors of Linux. Ubuntu 20.04 is one that's listed as compatible as a Veeam Linux hardened repository. So I've done Ubuntu 20.04 a couple of times for my customers. I'm by no means a Linux guru in any way, shape, or form, but I have followed the Veeam documentation online and a few different other articles that are available out there, and that's helped me along to gain a bit of an understanding on how to set this up, and I've got it pretty much working flawlessly for my customers. So we're going to dive in and set it up here in our lab. So just a brief overview of what the server is going to look like. It's going to have two physical NICs, and they're going to be in a configured as a network bond. Most servers that I've come across when setting this up, whether it be in a Linux server or a Windows server, if it's a repository server, they usually come with at least two NICs that we would team together or bond together. So we'll do the same thing in this lab. I'm going to set up 1 terabyte worth of storage space and partitioned into 2 volumes. So essentially, I'm going to add 2 500 gig drives to this server, and we're going to present them individually to our Veeam server as separate repositories. And once that's configured, we'll configure a scale out repository with these newly added simple repositories. It's all going to make a little bit more sense once we move into the implementation. So let's get right into the lab.
Okay, so just quickly, just check the diagram. So this is like a physical server. So we go back outside of our vSphere environment. And as you can see on the end there, we have an Ubuntu 20.04. I've just limited the text there a little bit as much as possible. I might have to update these diagrams to make it a little bit more readable, but essentially we've got another machine that's going to go on our Melbourne LAN segment. So back into our lab. So we're utilizing VMware Workstation, and we're going to build a new virtual machine. I'm going to use the custom mode, and happy with the compatibility. I'm going to install the operating system later, so I'm just going to add the ISO once I've got the virtual machine created. There's going to be a Linux. It is an Ubuntu 64-bit version, and we're going to call it Melbourne, LIN for Linux, and repository, I'm going to call it 01. Now, I'll just check where we've got storage space. I might have to free a little bit up. I might place this on the F drive for now, because I want it to be a terabyte in size. We won't use the whole terabyte today, but might have to free a bit of storage space up. So I'm just going to change that from D to F and go next. Happy with the processor. I'm just going to give it a little bit of extra memory. So that's 8192. Just double check my math on that. Sometimes get it wrong. It's 8192. And we'll configure the networking at the end. Logic is fine. SCSI is fine. Create a new virtual machine. So 20 gig is fine for the Linux operating system. Next, just going to hit finish. And that's going to populate this new machine up here. I'm just going to go edit again. I'm going to add a secondary NIC. And that Typing in Melbourne network. And I'm going to add, I said a terabyte. What I might do, I think I'll add 2 500 gig drives instead, just to make it a little bit more realistic. Finish. Add disk SCSI 100. It's all thin provisioned. And I'm happy with everything else. Okay. One last thing. Do need to add ISO. So let's go browse to our ISO folder, to Linux, and have this version of Ubuntu available. Click OK. And let's power up. So just bear with me. I haven't installed Ubuntu for a few months. Just going to be a little bit fresh. And by no means, sorry, I am by no means a Linux guru of any kind. I kind of self-taught. I watched a few other videos, read a few different forums and articles, and sort of just learnt my way. Primarily learnt Linux for the purpose of Veeam. So as you go along, you kind of learn a little bit more about how it all works and how it all comes together. Yep, happy with that. So I've got these two network adapters. They've got DHCP addresses. So what I'm going to do is create a bond using both of these adapters. Pretty sure this is just a balance. It's a load balancing mechanism, round robin. So I'm happy with that. And go create. And that creates that new drive, that new network interface up here. And we can now give it an IP address. Just using the keyboard to get around here. Just a mixture of tabs and spaces and enters up and down. Not DHCP, manual. Subnet, it's the 192.168.10.0/24. Ubuntu is pretty particular in the way that you enter these details, so you've got to add them in properly. The address, I will flick back to our network diagram, 10.15. Let's go here. So 192.168.10.15. Gateway server is 10.1. Our name servers is 192.168.10.10, and now we also have 10.14. So that's mldc1 and mldc2. The airlines.internal, our search domain, and save. Done. Don't use any proxies. Happy with the default mirror address for where we'll get our Ubuntu updates, software packages. Now it's just asking for the disk to which we will install this OS on. Obviously we've got 3 choices there, but we want the 20 gig choice, and LVM is fine. Done. That's just a summary. Looks good. Sure you want to continue? Yes. Go. Last thing. Your name, typing it, server name, so it's melvin repo1, username. So I'm going to use VBR admin, or just trying to think what would be the best. Maybe repository admin, repadmin. Password for it. And done. That's just setting up the profile. I will install SSH. So there are some recommendations about when you're setting a Linux hardened repository up. Having SSH on is considered against the best practices, but for the purpose of setting up the server, I'll leave SSH on for now, but once we're all up and configured, we'll disable SSH. So in a real life scenario, you would obviously have a dedicated physical piece of hardware for this. Well, that would be the recommendation, and you would install Linux. Once you're all configured up and connected up to Veeam, you probably disable SSH. You remove the root access for your user account that you use to connect it up to Veeam. And pretty much the only way you should really connect to this server, if you need to manage it, is maybe through the physical hardware's sort of lights out setup. So for instance, if it's a HP server, use ILO, and maybe add multi-factor authentication. There's a couple of good recommendation articles through the Veeam website that just provides a little bit of insight to make sure that you're getting the best out of your Linux hardened repository. But for now, I'm going to install OpenSSH. Go done. I am not installing anything else, so go done, and away it goes. I'm just going to pause the video. This can take about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, because I think it does some updates once it's complete. So we'll reconvene once this is finished. Okay, so that has now completed. I think what I need to do here, just like with ESXi, just disconnect the ISO. Okay, maybe we'll just wait. Let's go and do a reboot now. Yes, it always says to unmount, so maybe I just needed to wait for that to pop up. It's already disconnected anyways, so go ahead and do a reboot. So this will just take a moment. And we should be just about ready to log in. Just give it a moment just to do the last little bit. I'm not exactly sure all the jargon that's going on the screen at the moment. I just wait for it to say that I'm ready to log in, although I think I can. Up the top there, it looks like it is logged in. Let me just see if I press the enter button, what happens. Yeah. So repadmin and the password. There we go. And I think the command is lsblk. This will show us the disk information. So works a little bit different to Windows depending on what you're used to. SDA, that's the device SDA, was the 20 gig operating system drive, and that's been seemingly, I'm assuming that's just partitioned into 3 or 4 volumes. So we don't touch SDA, so we've got SDB and SDC, 500 gig each, and we've got SRO, which is the ROM, but I'm pretty sure that's been disabled, so I'm not too sure as to why I can say that, but anyways, I'm only interested in SDB and SDC. So basically, the plan here is to configure those 2 volumes ready for presentation to our Veeam environment. So I'll go reasonably slow, only because again, I'm not a I'm not a Linux guru. But the first thing we do is, so we'll configure, I think this is formatting, but it's just preparing the SDB and STC as a primary volume to be used within the operating system. So let's follow, definitely follow along if you can. SDB, and we make label GPT. The unit will be in GBs, and we make primary from 0 GB to 500 GB, the maximum size. So this is all about SDB at the moment, and we quit, and now we just do the same thing with SDC. We make label GPT, the unit is GB for gigabyte, make primary. I'm assuming this is a bit like using this part in Windows. 0 GB to 500 GB, and quit. Now I don't think that would show, no, it doesn't really show anything different to what we had before. Is it this command, df-h? This does show us a little bit. No, I don't think so. Okay. Anyways, that's part of the first step, is just to configure up the those volumes ready to be formatted. So to format, it is this following command: format to the XFS file system. So that's critically important. 4096 will be the block size. Then it's a little bit of a few little Linux commands here. So we're SDB and SDC. So this is SDB first, and I'm assuming we hit the format option, and that didn't throw us any errors, which is good. And we're going to do exactly the same thing with SDC. So I'm just hitting the up key to show the last command, and I'm just changing it to SDC. Done. So the only other real difference I think I find between Linux and Windows is that, so we've got those devices now, to actually see them within our operating system, and for Veeam to be able to see them, we have to mount these devices. So what I normally would do is I create a directory under mount, and I will call this repository 1, maybe rep. Maybe I'll go rep-01. Yeah, I'll be happy with that. And repo2. So this is where we're going to be mounting these devices. Okay, so to mount sudo, I am following off some notes from the previous time I did this for a customer. Again, I'm not a Linux guru by any stretch of the imagination. So mount device SDB to mount rep 01. Happy days. Sudo mount dev sdc to mount rep 02. Also happy days. So that's mounted and ready to go. Now, the other thing with mounts is that if I were to reboot this server right now, we'd lose those device mounts. So in order to ensure that these devices automatically remount after a reboot, we have to throw in a few lines into this following file, which is called fstab. Basically, that file doesn't have a lot of information in there, but we're going to add a couple of lines to it. Now, I've got some commands that automatically will add a line to the bottom of this file. So just follow along and we'll review the this fstab file once we're complete. Now, you could ask me, what are we typing? To be honest, don't know. Again, this is really just purely for the purpose of presenting this repository to Veeam. So pretty much adding that line, adding this command in. We'll have a look at what it looks like once we've just finished adding these commands. This is pretty straightforward. I just need to update SDB and SDC. It's exactly the same. Now, if we have a look at this file now, you can see at the bottom we've added those two additional lines to say we want to mount SDB to repo 1 and SDC to repo 2. So each time the server boots, it's going to check this file and it's going to do a mount for us automatically. So we don't have to keep doing this using a mount command every time we reboot the server. Right, so the next bit now is just to manage the user account. So let's commence that part now. So we're going to just create a local user account, which is going to be used to it's going to be utilized to connect Veeam with this Linux repository. This user account will have temporary admin rights and full exclusive rights only to the repo 1 and repo 2 mount points. As a matter of fact, we're going to update the permissions so that only that particular user has access. So not even our repadmin account will have access to those mount points. And once we've connected Veeam up and it's all up and running, then we downgrade the user account to just a standard user, and that's the best way to protect our operating system that's running as a Linux hardened repository. So without further ado, let's create this user account. So I'm just going to create a variable. The admin is repadmin, so I'll call this repuser. And just to make sure, I'll just run an echo. That's it. So that's the variable's working. We'll create the user account using the sudo user add, sudo user add md. We're going to create a directory for it. So all users generally live in the home directory / their account name, and that's the local account. repuser is the user account name. So if we go to now cd home, you can see we have repuser and repadmin as the two user accounts associated with home directories. And we just need to provide a password for this account. And punch in a password. And done. So what the first step is now to provide exclusive access to this newly created mount point. So to do that, we use this command. I think there are many ways that you can perform this change, but this is the way that I learnt. Repo 1. So this pretty much gives rep user account exclusive access to this folder to change its permissions, and then we do change the permission by going change mod. 700 is full ownership rights, I think, but that's what's required, and done. So that's the first one done. So I think what happens now is if we browse that, so we're logged in as you can see on the left hand side here of the text screen, we're logged in as repadmin. If we try to browse to that folder now, we get a permission denied. So even as the I guess the administrator using an administrator account, a sudo account, we've taken permissions away from this account and given it solely to the rep user account. So only rep user can manage it. So we come in here and we'll do the same thing now to the secondary folder. And that's done. And if we try to browse to this folder, we get permission denied, which is what we want to see. And finally, we just need to provide rep user temporary admin rights in order to install the data mover service of Veeam. If we leave it as a standard user account, whilst it does have full access permissions to these folders, these mount points, it does not have the permissions to install any services, and we do need to install a service for Veeam. So I will temporarily give sudo access to rep user. And once we've configured our Veeam repository, then we can remove that sudo account, and then we can disable SSH as well, and then we have pretty much a fully functioning Linux hardened repository. So that's it for the time being. So that's the server all sorted. So now we'll flick over into our next video, which will be from a Veeam point of view, and we'll line up some access to this repository. Talk to you soon. Thank you.